Hello everyone and welcome to a review. Today we're going to be talking about the 1987 sci-fi action film Robocop. The cast for this film is Nancy Allen as Officer Anne Lewis, Peter Weller as Robocop, Kurtwood Smith as Clarence, Ronnie Cox as Dick Jones, Miguel Ferrer as Bob Morton, Paul McCrane as Emil, Ray Weiss as Leon C. Nash, Sage Parker as Tyler, Robert DeQuee as Sergeant Warren, and that is about it for the cast. Okay, first of all, let's get into the acting performances. So Kurtwood Smith as Clarence was really good. Just an all-round performance point of view. This character's quite hot-headed. He's got a huge temper. He's very psychotic and very sadistic. Of course, he's very irreverent as well. A lot of his gang, you feel, is disposable and just doesn't care about sacrificing any of them for the sake of his own gain, as we've seen in the beginning of the movie. He's intimidating, he's antagonising. I mean, he was very manipulative at times with the cocaine shop owners in that one scene. He did really good there. He also did a really good cowardice performance as well when he's basically submitting to Robocop. He did really good at being just a ruthless killer like he did with Murphy at the very start of the film. He's very much a 3D character in a lot of ways, and there's very much a pinball effect with everything he has to balance and the tones he has to change into, obviously on their own rotation as well, depending on what's required of his character within a certain scene. He really is a showstopper though. He really steals the scene whenever he's in it. Just a pleasure to watch, and my favourite performance 100% from this film. We also have Paul McCrane as Emil, pretty much the same reason as Kurtwood as to why he's on here. There's one particular scene with him at the end where he crashes into this toxic waste tower and it burns him, and he gets flushed out because of there's that much toxic liquid in the van, and he gets flushed out onto the floor. He gets up and obviously his skin's falling off, he can barely talk. It's quite a disturbing scene, and it was really uncomfortable to look at. But it's truly torturous to watch when you see Emil go to one of his gang members and obviously you just see him in that state. And by the way, he looks completely unhuman as well. I'd say it looks like a disfigured leper Nosferatu, like the 1922 version. And then obviously he gets ran over in the end and obviously gets killed. And the death is insane, by the way, it's so brutal. He basically gets run over and gets splattered over the windshield. But yeah, it's just absolutely brutal what happens to him. I think that one of the biggest reasons it's hard to look at is because you're used to seeing this character in a certain way. You're used to seeing him enthusiastically just following the violence and the chaos behind whatever's going on with the gang, and him absolutely loving it. I think how cathartic it is for him really shines through. So when you see him in this scene where he's obviously his skin is shattered, his skin is shredding off, body is very tensed, and he can't even muster enough in his body, in his voice, because it's failing so fast, and he's in so much agonising pain that all he can do is sort of show his pain through a series of soft, tepid whimpers. It's a really great display of contrast, but I think it does a really good job of humanising him. Alright, okay, so let's get into the, kind of bad, kind of okay, not really that memorable performances. Let me get into Peter Weller. I think Peter Weller in this film, he benefited from being Robocop because him as a human, I wasn't sold on the performance at all. I think he was very plain. I think he was monotone. I think he delivered his lines quite half-assedly. I just think he put on a really bad performance. It's obviously due to the dialogue with Anne Lewis. That's obviously where he is staged most before he turns into Robocop, and it fell off. It felt padded. It lacked charisma. Everything was kind of delivered in the same way. But him as Robocop, it benefited him because his robotic, lifeless, at times unhuman-like tone benefited for a robot who is obviously not a human. And I think in a bit of sweet way, that definitely saves Peter Weller's performance, because as a robot, because of his natural pungy tone, it works well for a robot. And that's kind of the saving grace for his performance. I guess luck was on his side. It worked out for the better, because if he remained as a human for the entirety of this movie, I would have a lot of different things to say about Peter Weller as a performer. If the snippet of what we had of him as a human in this movie is anything to go by. Right, let's get into the negatives of this film. So the backstory for Murphy is pretty desolate. Yeah, it kind of says some stuff about his family, but it's not really enough for us to latch onto, to connect to dote about, or invest ourselves in. But he doesn't really say anything special about his family. He doesn't say anything that could make you like empathize or relate or like or just prompt any sort of response from us because we just don't know his family. We don't get told anything. We don't have any examples of the warmness between them and why they would be so precious to him because of those memories. For me, it's just sort of the initial, oh, that's sad that he's lost his family. And it doesn't really go deeper than that. Also, speaking of Robocop and Annie in this movie, obviously they're trying to paint out, they're trying to create this set piece of, well, these two have been together for the entire movie, pretty much, or, in some way, shape, or form. Because obviously, naturally, they're obviously partners, so... I'm guessing it's supposed to be a more impactful scene at the end. It's supposed to make you feel all this just rush of emotion at the end where Annie's obviously shot by Botica, and she obviously collapses to the floor, and then blah blah blah, things move forward, and Robocop kills Botica, and he gets up and says like to her, "Oh, it's okay, they'll fix you up. They always do." What I don't understand is why Robocop says that they always do this when his case is the most unique and a very solitary case because his foreman at this point was the only one to ever happen where a human and a robot get fused together into one. Also, I mean, the script believes that these two have enough chemistry to make this scene at the end. I don't see the chemistry between them. I'm not invested in their relationship whatsoever. So what I don't understand is why would you have that scene where she gets shots just to have him say that when one, it doesn't make any sense, and two, you remove all the tension away from her getting shot immediately. It's like you're not really giving the scene enough time to marinate for me. But thinking about it, I don't think there's really much that can truly save these guys' relationship just because the script has just neglected to write anything really strong for them. So, yeah. So it's not like this scene makes a huge difference. I mean, even if the script was wrote better in that regard, I mean, Peter Weller was just a parasite of this movie, so he would suck the life out of any possible moment just because of how bad his acting is. Robocop's catchphrases are beyond cringy. There's a scene in the movie where Robocop raids a compound of the bad guys. It's delivered like, "Come quietly or there'll be trouble." Like, he sort of delays the beat and trouble. I think the issue is with the line that's been written in the script for Robocop is very, very poor. And the issue is that sometimes you can get an actor who can save a bad line because of the performance of that line. Peter Weller couldn't deliver a bottle of milk. Never mind a line in a feature-length film. I'm not going to fully blame Peter Weller for the line delivery, but he has to be partly to blame. I think the right actor could have at least made something of that and tried to give it, a little bit of flair. I mean, yeah, bad line's a bad line, but I'm not going to blame an actor for the way they say it if they say it with oomph, and he just didn't. He says it sort of like hesitantly. That's what it sounded like in his tone of voice, so it just doesn't work. And then obviously the reply as well from the gang member. I forgot what is it? He goes like, "Fuck you," and it was like on the levels of like Tommy Wiseau, just completely just tone deaf in every single way possible. To be honest, that's kind of the only parts where there is bad acting. I mean, of course, aside from Paul Weller at the start of the film. But aside from those scenes, the acting in the film is okay at minimum, so I guess we can take that. Also, Robocop does like these kill poses when he kills members of the group, which I can understand. Again, for the time in the 1980s, this was the trend. This is just what happened. But that doesn't mean I can give it a pass, man. I mean, this really took me out of the movie. To be honest with you, I was just laughing just because of how ridiculous it looked. Doing like these overarm poses and like a sneak one underneath the elbow with the right hand as he kills the enemy. I think it just looked really silly. One thing as well that is a negative in this film is I don't understand why Jones trusts Botica to get the job done when he failed the first time. Now, granted that was without military grade equipment, but why trust Botica anyway when he gave Robocop everything he needs to bang you up in prison? Because obviously Botica pretty much gives a full confession about everything that Jones has done in this movie and what he's done and what he is doing. I mean, not only has he threatened his career, his livelihood, but he's also threatened his freedom. He shouldn't want to be giving him another chance. He should want to eviscerate Botica. Also, when confronted, he grasses you up at a moment's notice. You're giving him another chance when you think he would be paranoid and worried that in some way, shape or form, Botica tries to screw Jones again. Who's to say he'll even keep his word and complete the mission for you? So yeah, this is a big thing that the movie just gets wrong. It's just
it just wouldn't happen.
Now, of course, we have Jones saying to Botica when Botica is on the phone to Jones, he says that the lawyers are going to take care of his arrest, and obviously from this, Botica and his goons get released, even though we've obviously seen previously in prior scenes that there was an entire database dedicated to the crimes on these guys' profiles of what they have done, conviction offences. These are like high end felonies as well. This is not just misdemeanor level. Like, this is high end, and you know when it's high end, then they have a lot more levity in their court to keep them in, if they wanted to. And apparently they just get released. And also, it doesn't make any sense because he says that the lawyers will take care of them. How will the lawyers take care of them when it's not the decision of the lawyers? Is it because they'll fight the case? Well, even if they'll fight the case, it's still not up to the lawyers to make the final decision. It's the cops. When they feel like there's a lack of evidence or they can't progress it any further, then that's where they'll let them go. But in this case, they've just been let go for reasons unknown. Also, one of the gang members said that it was Jones who let him go, so I don't know if it's different on a case by case basis, but it's a little strange. That's not really explained at all. Yeah, I have no idea what that is. It might be an inconsistency that they're not fully thought of, or it could be just something genuine that is just not revealed.
See, it would make sense if Jones let them all go because obviously OCP have the jurisdiction over the police department, but obviously you can't really stop at that point the police department being suspicious, asking questions, and obviously looking at Jones in a very suspicious light because obviously from the police department's perspective, they obviously Jones has no association to these culprits, then why does he want them to be released? It would definitely make them ask questions. Also, by the way, since we're talking about like one of the gang members said that Jones helped him to get out. I don't understand how the governing board works, but I know that obviously Jones is senior president. But the thing is obviously a position above him. I don't know what decisions Jones can make. I don't know if he would be able to say to the police department, "Hey, release this guy," and it'd be done. I mean, you'd assume it will go to the CEO, right? The old man who's at the head of the table, who we see, in some scenes and obviously at the end of the movie, or notably. Like, either he has the final say or there would have to be a vote by the board or something, where obviously he would feature. I mean, well, I don't know for certain. I mean, I can't find any answers online, so I think it's just a thing of we don't know.
As well, just to reaffirm what I was saying before, I forgot about Annie. She's also seen these people, like in terms of complexion. She knows exactly what they look like. She's obviously had first-hand experience in dealing with them as well. While at the factory with Murphy, she can attest to anything to do with the situation for a crime that they can be penalised on, which is obviously the death of Murphy.
Or at least the attempt to kill Murphy, if you want to think about it that way.
So we've got Ed 209 in Jones's office. Obviously, Robocop battles it and barely gets out alive as he runs down a flight of stairs. And then you have Ed 209 in the most cartoony way possible, hovering its legs over the steps, trying to figure out how it's going to cross and get down and all that type of stuff. Honestly, like a dog would. And it just falls down the stairs and flips over on its back like a tortoise would.
And it becomes defeated. It's not like Robocop defeats him, it just self-sabotages itself. I mean, doesn't that cheapen Robocop when you think of like he's this cutting-edge machine? High intelligence, insane targeting system and all that. And he was beaten by a robot who fell on its back and couldn't get up like a fucking turtle. What does it tell us that Robocop can't defeat that? This one-of-a-kind creation, one based off pure chance. If he didn't flee out of panic, out of retreat, because he was on the back foot, he would have lost easily. You'd think with the advanced intelligence, maybe he would have been able to find a weak point and isolate it or something, but no, he escapes based off pure luck, really. I mean, maybe it was done for a comic relief thing, but what I don't understand is the scene with Ed 219 in the beginning of the film. He has a malfunction and murders somebody, and that's quite a serious scene. So, would you not want to be consistent in the way you want to portray Ed 209? I mean, I don't think we even know anything about Ed 209 and its capabilities. We know it's a bit janky, but that's about it. I mean, we know he was supposed to be used with the police department if it wasn't for that malfunction, which when you connect the dots, it seems like a serious thing, so I don't know, my head hurts trying to figure this out.
I have to talk about the bad stop motion of the robot. Normally I would vindicate films of these types of issues, like, because obviously you think about time and think about the lack of technology and obviously how different technology is now and stuff like that. You can't judge a film on technology that wasn't available to them at the time, which may have improved now. But in this case, when you think about what we had previously, which is Star Wars 5, who also used stop motion robots, and like that is still a testament to movie making and to stop motion animation to this day, then I have to slam this film for the bad stop motion robots because it's so terrible. It takes you out the moment. It's finicky. It's clearly fake, obviously. Point blank, it just doesn't look like it's actually right in front of us like it does on Star Wars. So, and obviously, don't forget as well, Star Wars Episode 5 came out 7 years before this film and has better stop motion effects. So, there you go. I think the gang crime could have been more extreme for Botica and his goons. They sort of don't really do anything unless the plot demands it. They sort of just like sit around, kick the dirt on the ground sort of thing, and when they're actually finally demanded and when they actually are on screen is because like, Robocop is being led to them or they're leading themselves to Robocop. It's all focused around Robocop, which is kind of an issue for me. And also, like, as well, they're obviously supposed to be notorious, these notorious gang members who do all these horrific crimes. And pretty much all they're doing is just, like, destruction of property. They're just destroying random establishments on the streets. They're not robbing, they're not kidnapping, they're not doing anything with any sheer purpose of that's going to benefit them. They just sort of do it for whatever laughs, I guess. I don't know what they are doing it for, but it's nothing practical. It just felt like they could have done a lot more and had a lot more scenes with the gangs in general, just to show how terrible they are, like what they do to people, who they steal from, what they say to the people, and the type of people they target, and just something like that that really just makes them even worse types of people than they are, right? Like than they are in this final court. That's what I think anyway. Death of the worker, thanks to Ed 209, everyone brushes it off, including the main boss who fires Jones at the end. Now, to my knowledge, we don't know what happened to this guy's body at the end, and clearly, although OCP rule over the police, they are still accountable for crimes, or Jones wouldn't be able to be prosecuted once that tape was shown. And he was fired, so I don't understand the guy's death at the start. Like, did anybody get punished for that? Is anybody held accountable? He is being held accountable for the crimes he committed, which is obviously what Jones did. Who was held accountable for that? This movie just sort of it just switches its own rules that it's set at the drop of an hat, and this situation is no exception. Maybe someone did get punished, but the person who created Ed 209 was Jones, and he was obviously allowed to continue on in his venture, which obviously led to the end of the film. So, did anybody really get punished? Probably not. Another downside is the rules of Robocop are quite frustrating. He needs baby food to heal, he takes no baby food to heal, and defeats every single one of the goons at the end. Easily, despite getting fucked up by the police in a shootout and Ed 209 in a separate incident. And then he obviously gets a pole stab through his arm with Botica. I don't know if it's a case with Robocop like it is with humans where something like a gunshot would be detrimental to us long term, and obviously we would bleed out from our wounds, for example. I don't know if that would be applicable for Robocop as well. I don't know, I think I'd just like a scale to
know basically how much you can handle. Does he have like one particular kryptonite? Is it a cumulative of a bunch of things that affect him long term? I don't know. I just think it'd be good to know. It would definitely increase the drama of the last scene, knowing if he was close to death or if he was slowing down at the very least.
Right, so I want to get into the commercials and I want to get into the news broadcast in this film. Now, the news broadcast is good in terms of delivering like an overview of information of what's been occurring and what the development is in terms of character, in terms of our world, in terms of our plot, whatever it may be. It's good that they give us like a little roundup. I can enjoy that.
I think it's a little bit strange to do that in a film, but I mean, there's definitely a novelty behind it.
I think the issue is that they've got these random commercials that are integrated that is used for satire. But what I don't understand is that there's no joke. It's just a regularly formatted commercial that is just republished.
It's like if a director came out and said that they're going to make a parody of Robocop, but then they just release Robocop again. I mean, you'd assume that the news broadcast part is also satire, but again, it's just a news broadcast. There's no irony or jokes or anything wacky to separate it from a regular news broadcast. It's just a regular news broadcast, no matter what you classify it as.
Right, let's get into Robocop and him being too overpowered. Like, I understand it's kind of the point of his existence because obviously he's supposed to be like this sort of like big super cop. And the issue is that when you've obviously got the gang and they're supposed to be bigged up themselves, like with Botica and Bob, where at least Botica is really disguised as this huge threat. But any single time, aside from the last, aside from the 15 seconds of the film where Botica is on top, they get completely dominated. Every single one of them, including Botica, by Robocop. So it kind of feels pointless. What's the point of having this whole build up of like, oh yeah, these are the best guys on the market, so reliable, so trusting, great shot on them, all that type of stuff. When Robocop is impenetrable to any of their offense. Now, obviously, I've gone over Ed 219, but he is the only thing in this movie to drive Robocop to a halt. And I've obviously said why Robocop's loss to Ed 209 is an embarrassment. So when the best in the market, in terms of the crooks, are competing with that, and they do absolutely nothing to Robocop, it's pretty embarrassing. Now, I understand that, Ed 209 is like, he's got huge fucking miniguns built into him. And okay, yeah, there is that, but still, I think nevertheless, Botica and his gang should have had some upper hand for a little bit more than 15 seconds in this movie. And to be honest, I don't know if that 15 seconds did a lot because it seemingly Robocop got straight back up after it like it was nothing. So also the movie does this thing where they kind of paint out that Robocop will never be able to see his wife and his kid again, which doesn't really make sense because just because he's a robot doesn't mean he can't have a relationship with his kid. Just because he's a robot doesn't mean that. I mean, possibly who knows that his wife won't fall in love with him again. I don't know. It's kind of lazy script writing. It doesn't really make sense because it's not true. I mean, the guy's not even fucking tried. Why is he giving up before he's even tried?
Robocop having flashback to himself with the goons was really good. And during that scene, you can really see the conflict and the struggle that he's having, as obviously he's half human, half machine, and you can see him try to fight off the software with the human side, trying to overpower it. Yeah, that was definitely really well incorporated. I've mentioned this scene before, but you've got the scene with Emil when he runs into the toxic waste tank. And the practical effects in the scene are absolutely marvellous. The bit of the lip, of his lip, like almost coming off his face, but still attaching by a little bit of skin, looked fantastic. And of course, the bits of shredded tissue you can see around his body, and his face and all that looks amazing. You've also got the little details on the bits of skin where there's little scabs and boils from obviously the impact of the acid. His hands especially look terrifying to look at. On his right thumb there's a nail sticking up, as a skin all around the nail, and the thumb itself is just completely and utterly shattered. His hands look really waxy, almost as if he's melting, which obviously is the effect you definitely want to have. Like I said before, it's like that wet paper effect from the skin separating from the bone. It looks just amazing.
And of course, like I said, there is downside to the effects, obviously with the stop motion effects, but overall, we were talking about like from a whole package point of view, really, really solid. You've got the special effects, which are really good. You've particularly in the explosion in Bob's house, or any of the gunshot scenes, of course. The scene with the military grade guns where they're just blowing up buildings and cars and all that type of stuff. That looks incredible. Yeah, so for the most part, pretty solid. Just one little blunder, really. I think they handled Robocop's inner conflict of complying what he's programmed to do with obviously the computer brain and obviously the human brain as well, trying to function the way it does. In the film, obviously you have the point where he's with Botica at the factory, at the cork factory. He could obviously, the human side was like strangling him and killing him, but then when you have the reveal from Botica that there's obviously someone behind this whole operation, which obviously is Jones, then he obviously stops, and then the computer brain kicks in, and that's when he has to make the arrest because that's what he's programmed to do. It's really good. It's really good. Like, and that's what I have to praise the film on heavily and immensely, is that type of thing. They did really good at highlighting that part of Robocop's story. They did really good at like showing the struggles of him, obviously missing his family and stuff like that. And obviously, although I have my issues with it,
with them not delving deep enough and showing examples of warm memories between Robocop and the family. I can still look at it from a human level, you know, seeing another person missing their family, and obviously it's going to get a response out of me, so...
OCP is good for the most part, aside from the few nitpicks I mentioned, that they are this big authoritative figure that rule over the police, they rule over the town. It's really interesting, it's good. I think the big issue really that I have is the way it's staged out in the final act of the movie at the end, where Robocop kills Jones. It's kind of played out that OCP is good but Jones is bad because the big boss fires Jones. But we obviously know that this other guy as well is not a good person. He lets his employees work in unsafe environments, of course, getting fucking murdered. He was also very dismissive and didn't really care about the murder whatsoever. He didn't stop or skip a beat. He just carried on. Yeah, he's not a very nice person, this big top guy. And you think about all the shit they put the police through and the shit they put the town through. Yeah, okay, they create Robocop, but that's all for selfish gain. That's for investors. That's for promoters, that's for all the coverage and all that type of stuff. It's all done not to serve the people but to self-serve themselves. So that's the issue with them, and they're sort of painted out like, in a way, like secondary heroes, or at least the big bosses.
I mean, the scene is very telling because when the moment actually happens, there's very little shock. And it's almost like, you know, it's a janitor of a school, like, oh, someone's been sick. Oh, well, you know, huffing and puffing. You know, I guess it's just another part of the job I have to do today. Something that I will do, but something that I will do begrudgingly. That's kind of seems to be the case with this murder. It's an inconvenience. It's more effort in an already taxing job for them, which obviously it should be way bigger than that. But I don't know. I think that at the very least there's definitely a lot of moral ambiguity. That's all I can say.
Jones obviously comes in out of nowhere and just completely and utterly just rumbles Bob, kills him. Which, by the way, is probably one of my favourite scenes in this movie.
So for a little bit of context, Bob is just an asshole in this movie. He's trying to greedily climb up the ranks, but he does it in a way that's unlikable but not unfair. He brags about it. He's very snobbish, of course. But he does it fairly. And the reason we see him getting killed here by Jones is because Jones sees him as a threat to him and his position within the company, so he has to take him out.
Obviously, we, the audience, get the reveal of Jones obviously being behind it all, which obviously we knew, but like we get the full tape and more information in a more elaborate way.
We also get to just onlook at Bob as he's told all this information for the first time, and everything obviously starts to click that the people who've barged into his house work for Jones and Jones is trying to kill him. And I like the way Bob tries to bargain. I love it that he tries to offer him money. He's begging to be spared, but obviously Jones is having none of it, and neither is Botica or anybody else. He just obviously has to await this slow burner of a death. I think it's a nice little commentary on his character as well, that he tries to bargain with money. Obviously Jones is not interested, but it's obviously well in a character like this who's motivated by rising up the ranks and motivated by money to try and bargain with money because he wants to appeal to their sensibilities that he assumes would be the same as his, because that's all he thinks about. I really like the characterizations of Bob and Jones because Bob, you would think initially could be like this bigger antagonist, but he really is just a smaller antagonist that obviously shifts aside, and obviously Jones comes in and is the main antagonist. Jones is bad in like a criminal sense. Jones is the bad in the sense of he's going to murder your family if you cross him, whereas Bob is just bad in the sense of he's just not a good person. And obviously he's not a very likeable person. I do think it's very broad from the writers to have two antagonists like this. Especially where one sort of... I mean, you could effectively say that that Bob poses as a red herring antagonist, who the main antagonist of the movie would be. It's also just very rarely that, obviously in this context, that an antagonist would kill another antagonist. I don't know, I kind of enjoyed that. And it didn't lose its impact either. I mean, you still feel sorry for Bob, despite obviously who Bob is and what he's like. I like it. It's so unique to the film. The death scene for Bob is very good as well. Obviously, you see Botica charging in and shooting Bob in the legs, and then obviously the tape plays. You just see Botica ravenously just strutting round with a smile and a grin on his face as he looks at the distress on obviously Bob's face, and as he starts to toy with Bob, just soaking in every little moment that he can from the situation, as he just loves every single minute. Then obviously when the tape ends, he plants the bomb on the table again with that his face. Then finally, when the bomb goes off in the house, and obviously he's outside of it, and you can see the explosion in the background, which, by the way, the explosion looks amazing. You just see the satisfaction, the pleasure on his face as he finally clenches that itch. And after that, his face sort of goes stern, and that temporary relief that he had is over, and it's sort of like the cycle restarts. I think it's a great demonstration of just how a psychopath like Botica would work. That 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds of dopamine before he needs to get onto his next hit and find the next victim. It's a chilling scene. The look for Robocop, they completely nail.
He just looks like such a great looking character. I mean, there's not really much else to say. He just looks amazing.
I like that the design of the mask is a visual manifestation of the Robocop characterization, where he's half man and half human. Because obviously within the mask on the design, it shows his face downward from the bottom of his nose, and then from the beginning of his nose upward, it's all covered in a mask. Half and half. I think the pattern on the metal looks really good as well. It's definitely more pleasing because obviously there's more to look at, and it's not just basically just a blank steel covering. I like the leather gloves for the hands. I think they're really cool. Yeah, just a really enjoyable design.
We've got Anne calling Robocop Murphy for the first time, and that whole build-up. Obviously, we get hints along the way as to why she calls him Murphy and why she thinks it's Murphy. And that's all really good, really well set up, really well built up. It's reaffirming that the person that he thinks he is in his mind is true, and it kind of gives him the push to accept it. It seems like in the scene he doesn't want to accept it, he doesn't want to believe it, but then the confirmation from his partner made him sort of come to terms with it, which I guess was a good scene. Obviously I have issues with their own personal bond, but it was good for what it was. It did good for that part of the story. So let's get into the editing and pacing. The editing in this film, for what it is it's pretty good. It's not a film with a lot of different crazy transitional effects and like crazy sci-fi robotic effects in terms of like the interface of the robot.
I'm not going to say it looks great. I would say it looks okay. I think it would help the believability more if there was a little bit more effort put into it, into how it looks. I think using something like Terminator as an example would be the friend, but yeah, it was alright.
Just to cover the editing again, dead quick, just to sum it up. It's okay. There's not really much that requires as shifts in editing and music or anything like that. It's pretty simple. Add music when you need to, cut when you need to. It's pretty simple project. Pacing. The pacing's really good. I must say the pacing is incredible in this film. A lot like The Blob, a lot like pretty much a lot of the great movies that exist. One thing you want to do is set everything up quickly and then get right into the action, and this film
follows suit in that regard. And I'm not going to say this is one of the best films ever made. That's not what I'm trying to say by that statement. But it does really good, like those movies, you know, setting up the exposition and getting right into the initial incident. And once it does that, it sprints to the finish. It's far from a boring film. It's constantly going, something's always happening to interest you, which is obviously very good.
Let's finally get into my conclusion.
I like the whole sci-fi aspect in general. I like the whole thing with OCP, obviously them ruling over the police. Dystopian future aspect to the film, if that's what you want to call it. Some great death scenes, some disturbing death scenes that really leave a mark. Of course, there's a lot of memorable characters. Emlyn, Botica. Like I said, well paced, you don't get bored. But like I said, it's played by many issues. I think Peter Weller as an actor was obviously hammy in this. Like I said, some characters that you're questionable on the purpose of. Ed 209, the OCP board. It's one of those films that has the fine print of being an absolute classic. It's just let down by so many things that can't let it progress past a certain point. If there wasn't so many things with this film that was up in the air, I would probably go out my way to watch it again. But because there's so many core things like are just not executed properly or let down in some way, I wouldn't go out my way to watch it again. That being said, performances, individual scenes, like I've said, there's a lot of stuff I really enjoy about the film. So for that reason, I would give it 2.7 stars out of 5.
That's honestly probably the last thing I'm going to say on this film. There's not really much else to say. But anyway, that's it. Goodbye.